In Islam, the Quran is not the only source of authority Muslims use. Sharia law comes from a combination of sources including the Quran, the Hadith and Islamic scholars. Sharia comes from the term straight path and refers to rules that Muslims follow. It teaches the clear or straight path to Allah by giving Muslims rules of which actions are fard or compulsory and haram or forbidden. This could include things like foods that they're not allowed to eat, such as pork, or acts that they can't perform, like gambling. One of the most important features of Sharia law is the information in regards to hududs, which means boundaries. These are punishments which under Islamic law are fixed by Allah. However, in contemporary society, many of these punishments are not permitted as they're deemed to be very controversial. The use of Sharia law in Wales has been a controversial topic, and there are questions regarding whether it should be allowed in Wales and wider UK.
Britain's Sharia Councils are under scrutiny.
Because he loves you also very much.
Yeah, but this is not enough.
They operate across the country, deciding on family matters using Islamic or Sharia law.
We were unhappy. Well, mostly I was unhappy because I wanted to have respect in my life.
Mainly they hear from Muslim women wanting to end their marriages.
They cannot go to civil courts because their marriages are only religious marriage. They come here in order to resolve those problems, issues in the sight of God.
But the government's concerned they may be discriminating against women.
So the question we're going to focus on today then is, should Sharia law be practised in Wales? Now, in 2018, the government conducted a review of the application of Sharia law in England and Wales. In this, it was argued that the use of Sharia law should not be banned, saying that Sharia councils are fulfilling the needs of some Muslim councils, and that if the Sharia councils are banned or closed down, it could lead to councils going underground and practising in secret. The concern was that a complete ban on Sharia councils would mean that many Muslims would decide to practice this legal code in secret, and any councils would be unregulated. The worry was that this would put people in danger or risk injustice going unnoticed. The report also pointed out that Muslims are not the only religion to have their own legal systems and councils. For example, the Catholic Church and the Jewish faith both have similar councils dealing with religious laws and issues. However, the review concluded that although Sharia councils should be allowed to continue, they would have no legal status and no legally binding authority under civil law. As a result, if a Sharia council was to recommend something that goes against UK state law, then Muslims must follow the UK law. So what are the arguments then in favour of Sharia law in Wales? Well, in 2008, the previous Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, caused significant controversy after suggesting that Sharia law should be accepted in the UK and be given some legal status. He said that adopting some of the aspects seemed unavoidable and that the UK had to face up to the fact that some citizens do not relate to the British legal system. The Archbishop argued that by adopting Sharia law, we could bring communities together and make Muslims feel welcomed and accepted. He went on to say that Muslims should not have to choose between cultural loyalty or state loyalty. They should be able to practice both.
What are you trying to say about Sharia law and incorporating, in very simple terms, could you explain it to me?
I'll try, yes. I think that got me into more trouble than anything else I ever said. And I'm sure I should have found a better way of saying it. Well, maybe there are areas where some aspects of Muslim law can be recognised or endorsed by the law of the land in such a way that they allow some disputes to be resolved within those terms. I did also say, and nobody noticed this, that the one thing we mustn't do is create a sort of self-enclosed world where people are stripped of their civic liberties, women especially. And if there are forms of Sharia law which discriminate against women, then the law of the land has to be clear that nobody can take away those basic civic rights.
Could you not have foreseen that the tabloids would leap upon you?
I should have, shouldn't I? I should have.
In addition, many have argued that the Declaration of Human Rights permits us to practice religion freely. It states everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience and religion, to manifest his religion and belief in worship, teaching, practice and observance. As such, providing the Sharia law doesn't violate the freedom of others or cause harm, Muslims should be free to practice their faith in these councils. Under the Declaration of Human Rights, we also have the right to freedom of association with others, which could imply the right to join or establish such councils. However, on the other hand, there are those that are against the application of Sharia Councils and laws in Wales. Some have argued that the rules and ideas presented in Sharia law, particularly regarding punishment, marriage, divorce and family rights, are incompatible with the British legal system and British values. The Bishop of Rochester said it would be simply impossible to bring Sharia law into British law without fundamentally affecting its integrity. Some political leaders have argued that allowing different legal systems to exist might cause more segregation in society. Instead, by everyone following the same legal code, we can all be united. The previous Lib Dem leader Nick Clegg said, "Whatever your faith, whatever the great cultural diversity which I celebrate in this country we have, there's got to be a certain set of values which we all subscribe to, otherwise the whole thing falls apart. You need a glue that holds us all together. Respect for the same body of law is the part of the glue that holds the democratic society together." In addition, the current Archbishop of Canterbury, in his book Reimagining Britain, argues that we're still predominantly a Christian country, and consequently our values are rooted in Christian values. His argument was that if we accept Sharia law, we'd be accepting the values which are at times in conflict with our own. He said accepting it in part implies accepting its values. Deeply embedded into a system of faith and understanding of God, cannot become part of another narrative. Essentially, the Archbishop was arguing that we can't take Sharia law that has its own history, faith and legal system and try to fit it neatly into our own law that has a very different history and Christian heritage. Some have argued that there's no real demand from Muslims to introduce Sharia law into the British or Welsh legal system. The Muslim MP Shahid Malik said, "I haven't experienced any clamour or desire for Sharia law in this country. If there are people who prefer Sharia law, there are always countries where they could go to live." In fact, some have argued that Muslims don't necessarily want Sharia law because it may lead to alienation and further segregation from the community. Another Muslim MP from the Labour Party called Khalid Mahood said this will alienate people from other communities because they will think it's what Muslims want, and it's not. Finally then, some human rights campaigners have argued that some of the laws in the Sharia legal code go against human rights and therefore don't want it introduced into Britain. For example, the Sharia laws allow some extreme punishments such as the death penalty, which goes against the right to life. In the Declaration of Human Rights it says no one shall be deprived of his life intentionally. The organisation and campaign One Law for All against Sharia law in Britain has received over 31,000 signatures in support of their proposals. This campaign argues that Sharia law and councils discriminate against people, particularly women. They received much media coverage after writing a letter to the PM Theresa May explaining their disappointment in the government review of Sharia law. Their argument was as follows. "We call upon UK government to bring an end to the use and institutionalisation of Sharia and all religious laws and to guarantee equal citizenship rights for all. Sharia councils are discriminatory, particularly against women and children, and in violation of universal human rights. Clearly, Sharia laws break fundamental human rights. In order to safeguard the rights and freedoms of all people living in Britain, there must be one secular law for all and no Sharia." So that gives you a summary then of the arguments for and against the application and practice of Sharia law in Britain. That will prepare you if it comes up as a D question. In order to test your understanding of that information, it's useful to have a go at some of the test questions which you can find on Quizlet, or you can have a go at some sample exam questions which are on the following slide. Good luck.